Hey guys, welcome back to the Kool-Aid Podcast. Welcome back to another video. Now, on today's video, guys, I'm going to be looking and we're going to be talking about the words from some of the players and as well as looking at the words of Hansi Flick. We had a couple of them speak after the horrendous loss against Sevilla yesterday. And I'm going to analyze, I want to look over some of their thoughts, how they're feeling after what was I would say the worst performance under Hansi Flick's tenure against Sevilla. We're going to be looking on, their sensations, how they're feeling, some of their thoughts about the performances, and how we should be moving forward. Because there's a lot to talk about, and I know a lot of us are feeling frustrated. And I know how Barca Twitter is at the moment. A lot of them are either saying, "Hey, keep the faith in Barcelona," and I would say half is just saying the season is over. Barcelona not going to win anything. Let's get off the hype train of Barcelona. Simple as that. And I think there's a lot of reactionary takes out there, and so I think it's good to to talk it out and to just have this sort of therapy session, so called. But before I get started on the video, guys, make sure to follow me on all of my social media platforms. Everything's posted down below in the description. Go over there and check me out. That way you guys stay up to date with everything that I do on the channel. And as well, the link to become a member is also posted down below. But as always, guys, let's get started with the video. All right, guys, let's get started with the video. And I first want to be looking and talking about the words about Hansi Flick, because we always start with the coach. We want to be looking at what Hansi Flick is feeling and what is his reaction. And he first starts off by talking about the team's reaction. He says, "We have a good team and good players will return. I appreciate the team's reaction in the second half." He talks about the game in general, and he says, "We tried everything. In the end, football is about scoring goals. We had great chances, but we didn't convert them. This can happen." And that's, I'm pretty sure, in regards to the Robert Lewandowski penalty, the Rooney Bardghji chances, the occasional Marcus Rashford chances in the first half. But, it happens. When Barcelona aren't able to finish chances when we're not playing well, a result like this can be expected. Hansi Flick continues on to talk about the loss. He says, "The toughest defeat as Barca coach was in Milan. We have to approach what happened in a positive way for what's to come." And this is what I want to touch upon, in a little bit more detail, because a lot of Barcelona fans, they're viewing this as, a catastrophic defeat, the loss against PSG and the loss against Sevilla. And what I will say, guys, is we're in October. We're in the start of the season. Most of our key players are out. Your Balde, your Gavi, your Fermin Lopez, your Lamine Yamal, your Rafinha, your Juan Garcia. I just named so many players who are injured and who are not available, and players who are even yet to come back and be at their full fitness and in great form, your Baldes and your Marc Bernal. And so when you look at this Barcelona team, I would say, I'm not going to make excuses, just like as one of these Barcelona players they talked about, but there is still a lot. This is still a sort of a weak Barcelona team that is not at its full potential. And when we talk about some of the problems in regards to the press, in regards to the fatigue that does play an issue, it compounds that. And so looking at this defeat, obviously there's things to learn, because losing 4-1 and losing against PSG, it warrants reflection. But at the same time, I'm not going to be too critical. I'm not going to be overly pessimistic about the season, because I still Barcelona can go out and have a great and successful season. I don't want to be coming into this video with a negative mindset. No chance whatsoever. Hansi Flick, he talks about Barca's quality, and he says, "We had more of the ball and created more chances in the second half. That's our quality. We didn't do it in the first half because they were very intense in the one-on-one duels, and we couldn't find our game from the back." And this is where I would say comes that self reflection and that self criticism. Barcelona in the first season under Hansi Flick, we played absolutely amazing. We brought in this high line, which I would say caught some of the teams off guard. I mean, because not a lot of teams knew how to play against that. They didn't practice against that. There wasn't a lot of footage of Barcelona playing in that way. But after a full season, Barcelona, we now know how they're going to play. We know how Barcelona's going to have that high line, and you're seeing teams, expose that. You're seeing teams, having that sole striker, have be a couple of meters offside, have the wingers or the midfielders make a run in from behind, not the wingers, a midfielder make that second run in behind, and then once they beat that high line, then they're just able to have a driven through pass or have a simple cross inside the box, where the striker, which is already having significant distance in regards to our defenders, is able just to have an easy finish. You saw it against Newcastle, you saw it in the games against Inter, you saw it against Sevilla, just recently. That is something that teams are figuring it out, and this is where Hansi Flick is going to have that self-awareness to say, hey, let's tweak this a little bit. Let's see how we can combat teams trying to counteract us. That is where, we're going to have to see on Hansi Flick's ability to grow and basically show what this team can do. But full faith in Hansi Flick and his ability to do that. Hansi Flick, he talks about this defeat a little bit more. And he says, the feeling from today has to give us strength for the rest of the season. The team tried, we have good players, and they will show it. I 100% agree. Hansi Flick continues on. He talks about the international break. He says, with this defeat, with the feeling we have now, it's important that we keep it. And when we come back from the break, we'll fight for every title. And this international break couldn't have come at a better time. Barcelona right now, they're just going through, I would say, a bad slump. That happens to every single team. Liverpool, they're on a 3-game losing streak. You don't see the world falling apart because, and that's Liverpool after spending over 500 million euros in the past summer. Barcelona spending 28 in this past summer and just being 2 points behind Real Madrid in the league, and just losing the second game in the Champions League. Absolutely ridiculous. Some of the, I would say, narratives and some of the drama that is being created. But I want to be moving on and looking at the words from Alejandro Balde. What was his thoughts about the match? Alejandro Balde, he talks about the penalty. He gives his insight. And he says, in my opinion, that wasn't a penalty. There was also a foul on Koundé in the second goal. But these aren't excuses. We have to improve, adapt to situations like these, and keep developing. Alejandro Balde talks about the defensive issues. He says, I think these are things you suffer from during certain periods of the season. There are things we have to correct so we don't struggle so much at the back. The season is very long. We're in October, and I think there's still a long way to go. We'll train to fix it. Please, patience, guys. Patience, patience, patience. Do not get overly negative. Do not throw your toys out of the pram. Barcelona, we still have the quality to go out and win so much with this team. Especially just look at what Hansi Flick achieved in the first season. Simple as that. Frenkie de Jong gives his insights. He talks about the team's fatigue. And he says, I think part of it is due to the accumulation of fatigue. One of the reasons why Barcelona, they've lost these 2 games. He says, that's how it is. We've played 7 matches in 21 days. But sometimes running after the ball tires you out more than anything else. And that's why it's so important to have good squad depth. Because if Hansi Flick is going to be playing in this manner of football, playing in such an intense manner, you need players at 100%. We've seen Pedri and Frenkie de Jong start and play the majority of the matches for the past couple of weeks. And that's just not sustainable. And this is where, you come in, you're Joan Laporta saying, why couldn't we have, given more financial support to Hansi Flick? We all know the reason why. Moving on, I want to be talking about Pau Cuarsi, who, didn't cover himself in glory, but at the same time, no one did. I want to be looking at his thoughts, and he says, in the second half, we had very good chances, but football is like that. We can't let ourselves go as we did in the final play. Looking ahead, we must focus on these mistakes and push more. The stadium is difficult, but you can't go into a match without the required motivation. We entered this game half asleep. And that is where Hansi Flick, was touching upon, in those earlier matches, in the game against Rayo, and some of those matches where we didn't necessarily perform well in. And that is attitude. Some of the pressing from Barcelona has been abysmal. You saw a video between Pedri and Ferran in which they were discussing. And Pedri was telling Ferran, hey, you have to pressure. You have to press, the fullback. You can't be letting the fullback, have those runs. And what's crazy is that if Ferran Torres isn't pressuring, then who is, And Ferran Torres, he has to. You're not Messi. You're not, a Lamine Yamal, because if Lamine Yamal doesn't press, it's understandably. It's Lamine Yamal, but he still presses. If Robert Lewandowski doesn't press, it's understandable. He's Robert Lewandowski, But Ferran not pressing, not having that 100% intensity in that action, which Pedri has to call him out for. Come on, we have to do a lot better than that. And then Pau Guarci touches upon that. Pau Guarci continues on. He talks about responsibility. He says, I don't want to make excuses about the pitch or anything else because it depends on us. We have to improve the aspects we lacked today. In the first half, we didn't show a good image. But in the second half, we had moments where we could have even taken the lead. And that's true. Because even in those bad moments, Barcelona, we still had the chances to equalize and to even get the lead. Unfortunately, as the cookie crumbles, it just wasn't meant to be. And we'll be looking at Pedri, one of the shining stars out of what was a dreadful Barcelona performance. One of the only players who relatively could say he played well. He talks about the team's performance, and he says, we haven't played a match like today's. We need to work so it doesn't happen again. For me, the team was bad in the first half. I don't think we've played a match this poor before. We have to be honest with ourselves. Now we have to look forward and recover. But when we return from the international break, we must think about what we can improve so this doesn't happen again. In the first half, we didn't know how to defend or attack well. We have to do a lot of self-criticism. There was a lack of intensity. I noticed it from inside the pitch. Lack of intensity. If Barcelona are going to have this high line, we need our players to be pressing like crazy. A pack of hounds, wild dogs, chasing after the ball, making sure that if anything, any aspect of play, any sequence of play, Barcelona are on top of it. Simple as that. But he talks about the refereeing decisions. He says, the referee told me the foul on Koundé before Sevilla's second goal was very soft. Then in another Sevilla play, I told him the same thing, that it was soft, and he told me I was right. But in one case, he called a foul, and in the other, he didn't. But he talks about Lewandowski's missed penalty, and he says, Lewandowski missing a penalty, those are moments that can change the course of a match. But penalties can be missed. We shouldn't blame only that. Throughout the match, we weren't at the level we needed to be. We're missing a lot of things. Honestly, with the ball, we didn't know how to break their man-to-man pressing. We lacked intensity in defense. And it's tough. But, Pedri right there gave us a lot to talk about. He gave us a lot to think about. And what Hansi Flick is going to have to do, he's going to have to go to the drawing board. And these players as well just reflect over this loss and make sure it doesn't continue on, and have a bad week turn into a bad month. And a bad month turn into a series of bad months. And a series of bad months turn into a poor season. We don't want that to happen. We need to, making sure we snip it in the bud. And I want to give credit to every single one of these players who came out, because you see Pedri, you see Alejandro Balde, you see these two youngsters come out and face the media after what was a horrendous week for Barcelona. And I also want to give credit to Frenkie de Jong as well, because these are the players who are coming out and facing the media when things are going bad. This is something that you have to respect and give credit to and just admire, because some players just don't do that. Imagine, Dani Olmo coming out after what was a horrendous week and very, very bad performances and facing the media. It's understandably why he doesn't, but at the same time, you want your leaders to show face, to show, the fans that, hey, we understand that we messed up and we're going to be working to improve that. And that's what I want to give credit to these players who are coming out to speaking. But at the same time, I want to give credit to Rooney Bardghji and Eric Garcia, because these two players, both of them came on in the second half. Eric Garcia, a player who has become indispensable for Hansi Flick in these past couple of weeks, a player who is playing well, not only in the center back role, but in the right back role and the left back role, a player who is fulfilling so many positions for Hansi Flick and is playing brilliantly. And at this point, it seems that he's one of the first names in the team sheet. As well, talking about Rooney Bardghji, a player who came in the second half and offered so much. And when you're looking at his ability, I know he missed chances in that second half, in which even I said this is why he doesn't start, but this is why Rooney Bardghji is going to need to be having more protagonism in this team. This is what Hansi Flick is going to have to implement and put more faith into him. We've seen Rooney Bardghji start before, but with the absence of Lamine Yamal, we need a natural right winger. Yes, we can say, at times he isn't going to be performing at the level required, but we need that width. We need a natural player on that right-hand side. It's something different that Ferran or Marcus Rashford can't offer there. And so, I hope we get to see more of him. I understand why Hansi Flick didn't start him, but at the same time, we're going to need to see more from him. But guys, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. I know a lot of us are feeling very frustrated after that performance, but hey, it's the international break. We're going to have 2 weeks without Barcelona playing, and hopefully we are able to bounce back and have a series of good results, and we just put this behind us. But let me know your guys' thoughts down below in the comments. Let me know your guys' thoughts. I'll see you guys all on the next one. Peace out, guys. Vamos.